It's another week of challengers, and this week we had the elite qualifiers. It was a horse race in North America, some upsets happening in EMEA, and of course, it wouldn't be challengers without its own little sprinkling of drama. Let's dive into it to see what happened this week in challengers. If you missed last week, this weekend was the qualifier in order to get into the Elite 1 for challengers. Okay, so we were looking for our top 12 teams in order to make it on. They went through a bracket system in order to get there, and I gotta say, Enigma, it was absolute cinema all weekend long. You can see our final placings here for the squads for North America. I think for the most part, no real surprises, you know, when we kind of look at some of the cups and some of the early tournaments that was going on here. But give me some kind of high-level early thoughts that you had specifically for North America for obviously the elite qualifiers this weekend.
Yeah, not too many surprises on who gets through. Maybe one or two that you could have potentially put into that, like would expect it to get through bracket. But North America's stacked with talents. That's just going to happen. I think the manner in which some of the teams get there is impressive, if anything. I know we're going to touch on it a bit more later on, but Team Phantoms in particular stood up and were accounted for this weekend. Next threat, Black obviously had to overcome some drama on their side, but Stallions Black as well. They had to overcome a considerable amount of pressure. Let's just say through the weekend. So the fact that those teams have managed to do that, Elite always serves up some drama when we get there, always serves up a strong underdog. And be curious if any of those teams can live up to that title.
I'm right there with you. I think to me, you know, the only maybe surprise that we're seeing is that Cabal roster, right? Recently we just talked literally a week ago, actually almost less than a week ago, about how this team had to blow it up, right? They had to, really swap out a lot. This is almost a brand new roster, right? That's coming on in.
Pretty much.
Of Manny, Katz, Nezra, and obviously Hamza coming on in and playing as a roster. And the fact that they are able to make those changes and still qualify is really, really nice to see. Kind of lets me know, I know Coach Afflicted has been on the timeline a lot lately saying, hey, I'm going to get to the CDL. I want to prove that I know what I'm talking about and that, they can create a system. And I think this is a good sort of marquee of that, right? You have a whole new roster that comes in right before the Elite 1 qualifier, and you manage to make it out over some rosters I think a lot of people thought would be able to make it. I got to tip my cap where it's due because I think that is not easy to make happen. But you talked about it. Let's take a look at the bracket here to kind of talk about some of those upsets, some of those people who made it through. I think the one that I want to call out first is For Fun Esports, right? I think this is one that it was maybe one of the few orgs and teams that we were looking at this and saying, wow, really surprised to not see them there. As a reminder, that's Dak Flames, Gunzy, and Wiz coming on through. I mean, it's tough, man. They 3-0 their first team. Absolutely beautiful. They go into their qualifier match against none other than the Huntsman. It's a 3-0. Okay, who do you got to play next as you come on down? I don't know who EVX is, but you 3-0 them. And then who do you got to play after that? Well, none other than the Bush themselves. Not an easy bracket for For Fun.
No, they got unlucky a little bit with the fact that they have to play Bush. Don't get me wrong, they still would have had to play Phantoms, who were clearly looking phenomenal on the weekend. Should the results have gone the same way, basically, that was kind of who upset the Bush. But it's a case of, it's tough. You end up getting dropped in that lower bracket. You've just got to come and play through. And the thing is, there was opportunities for them to make it happen. It says 3-0 on the board. It was a much more interesting series than it looks. I think the map 2 went round 11, I'm pretty sure. Map 1 was close until it wasn't. And map 3, Bush aren't strong necessarily when it comes to Overload. They have issues there. So this could have been a very different storyline for Fun. It's tough. They're one of those rosters, where it's like you're right on the cusp of being a part of that higher level conversation. All the teams that have qualified for the Elite will certainly respect For Fun Esports. Yeah. Unfortunately, though, you just fall short on the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, like we mentioned last week, there's still opportunities for these teams to play. So with a lot of the heavy hitters, kind of already qualified for the Elite, we know that the cups are still going on, so you can still acquire those points. I'm actually kind of making an early prediction here, my friend. I think For Fun might start speed running some of these cups that are coming on up, man, because, that's like one of the few teams that I think looking at this bracket that I'm like, okay, you maybe are the team that should have made it in, but you didn't. Coming on in. So I'll be curious to see, can they continue that momentum? Showcase they should be one of those teams that is going to be a thorn in some of these big squad side come Elite 2. Now, just because you made it to the Elite doesn't mean the run is over. So now that we have our 12 teams, they're going to get split into 2 different groups. And man, I don't know if there's a way that we could have slices that these groups do not look like straight hell. So let's talk about our Group A and Group B that we have going on here. Shout out CDC Intel for tweeting out, at least for an NA, what those groups go ahead and land it on, because it is based, I believe, on pro points and seeding and all of that fun jazz that we have there. So in Group A, as over the next couple weeks, as these teams are going to go ahead, you're going to play everybody else in your group, okay? We have T-Bush, Omit Brooklyn, Next Threat, Five Fears, High Treason, and Team Proto, aka Team Phantoms as well, that we were talking about on that screen before. Already, this is some banger matchups happening in this group, right? I'm looking at Bush versus Omit Brooklyn. I know that's one we're going to be keeping our eyes on. I think Next Threat and Five Fears are squads that are, I mean, realistically, Enigma, it doesn't even make sense to talk about like who are the heavy hitters in this group, because it just feels like to me all of these teams are very capable of taking maps and series from the other teams.
100%. This is a gross group. I feel for High Treason, don't get me wrong, I think they're a good team, but Aiden mentions Veil and Icons. I think maybe that's the one that I feel like is in a little bit risky position, and maybe one that I would put a relegation situation on. But for everybody else, I mean, yeah, Team Proto, they're a surprise team getting through, but to get there, you beat Bush. So that's a really good team in the form that they're currently in. Bush Gaming, obviously fantastic, have won the first two cups, but then have banana peel kind of moments. Brooklyn, kind of similar team in the sense of like they're very much capable of winning anything, but certainly can have one or two slip-ups. And then alongside them, I mean, Next Threat Black, these guys terrify me at the minute with the form that they're on. And Five Fears are a side that can never really be overlooked. You're right in the sense I don't know if we can slice it anywhere where it doesn't look gross.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, we'll look at B obviously in a second.
Let's take a look at B. Let's go talk about it.
I don't know like how many of the teams you can move from B into A to make it a stronger group. Anywho, obviously both Falcons Academy teams are gross. P7 Notorious are gross. And then you've got Huntsman, who I think are one of those like on the cusp of where are you at right now? Are you about to make that jump into the very top echelon? If so, this would be a great moment to do that. Plenty of rumors about Neon potentially moving into the CDL. So that's an interesting one. For me, the Stallions, COD Black, and Cabal Esports team rosters, they might be in a bit of a difficult situation, but there's plenty of talent there. That's what you've got here.
So I'm going to ask you something really tough here, my friend, because we like to post these on social media. Hey, only two teams, or there are two teams in each group who can't make it out of the group, right? Because obviously it's the top four from each of these groups that make it to bracket. So let's pause it, man, because this is the point of this show, right? It's for us to talk about, use our big brain COD analyst skills. Well, your big brain. I'm just kind of yell most of the time, but let's talk about our predictions. I mean, if I'm gonna think about Group A, I'll go first, right? I posed the question.
Okay. Let's rephrase the question very slightly and do it as the four that we'll get through. I don't want to sit there and be like, you two fucking suck. Get out of here.
No, but I think you got to be realistic. The reality is there are two teams who are not making it out of the groups. So I don't think it's not necessarily saying who's going to suck, but I think a reality is there are teams who we think might struggle against some of the caliber that some of these teams are, right? It doesn't mean they're bad. I mean, it's good. Who knows? Maybe we come down to tiebreakers and it comes down to head-to-heads and map counts and all that fun jazz. You know, we don't know. I don't know. But I think if I'm thinking about Group A, I like this High Treason team. I think you only have so many chances when you look at the matchups here where you might say, okay, yes, we think that we have a better chance in this game versus other games, and these are must wins, right? And I just feel like High Treason, they only have one or two of those, right? So it's like your margin of error becomes very, very slim. And I don't know if they can rise up, and because realistically, if you are one of these maybe quote unquote lower teams, like I'll say my second one as well, I love this Five Fears roster, but same thing, right? I loved what I saw from Proto and Phantoms over this qualifier, and just Five Fears, I think maybe looked a little shaky. I mean, I could say, hey, Bush, they had to obviously qualify through the loser, so maybe there's something there, but I think that team just looks too good. I just feel like your margin of error for those two squads is just too slim. Personally, that's there. It's like they got to win against each other, essentially, if they want to try and be able to make it out of the group stage. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. I feel like the three that are going through are Bush, Omit, Next Threat. The other three, it'd be one of those that scrapes through, and it depends on who does the better in the matchups against each other. You're right with High Treason. They finished top 16 every cup so far, so yeah, you could probably say that they're not having but the elites always throw a spanner into the works. And also, I think you're right with Five Fears position for sure. I think, I'm not going to disagree with you. Let's talk about B, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I've kind of already answered this one for you. Stallions, COD Black, Cabal. I think those two are going to be in tough spots going on that kind of criteria that you're talking about there, where you're talking about how there's games where I'm looking at some teams and saying you should take maps off this team without a shadow of a doubt. I think that for Stallions Black, them just getting here is a step forward.
Yes.
I think for this Cabal roster, I don't know. Maybe Huntsman are the slip team, and they have an unsteady, but they've really improved since Major Mayhem has come in and fixed up the rest. Maybe it's all on the name change. Is that a thing? If so, that could put them in a spot of bother. But the two Falcons teams and the P7 Notorious, I expect them to walk through this. It's all about who finishes top, who learns the most going into playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely it kind of comes to me as exact same thing. Does Neum stay on the Sunsman roster? If so, I think they're definitely making it to that bracket. If that change does happen, we could definitely see them drop down to also be in contention with Cabal and Stallions Black. Stallions Black, great team. I love my little swag checked, but man, it was very, very close, and I wonder how will you fare against the big dogs, or I should say the Falcons in this group that's there. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Let us know in the comments, who do you think is not making it out of the groups, because this is really just a straight-up toss-up, man. For EMEA, on the other hand, we've kind of been pretty vocal on this show that it feels like they are a little bit sort of one step behind North America, but still had some great matches this weekend nonetheless. Pretty much every team who's made, feels like top 6, top 8 from the Cups the last couple of weeks were able to get on through here with a couple of new names joining them. And I think that'll make the groups maybe a little bit more interesting than the North America side, right? Because I think we're going to see, you know, who are those teams that can manage to get out of groups that are there. But when we kind of look at these teams that did qualify, Enigma, any real surprises here? Any names that you're kind of, you know, or let me put it this way. Who are you excited to see that, you know, we're able to kind of make it on out of here?
I think I want to see a bit more of this Rock Esports team and see if they can compete consistently. I think that right now Clutch Rain and P7 are like a cut above, and it's largely them two scrapping over everything this season. I want that to be a different story. We want to see multiple matchups through a bracket where it is a bloodbath, multiple potential winners. You know, in North America, we could probably line up 6 different teams that could that could win the tournament, and no one would be surprised. Whereas, I look at EMEA right now, and I think it's your top 2. Rock Esports kind of floating on their own, and then a big gap to everybody else. So I want to see that change up. So I think Rock getting close to that would be nice. Otherwise, it's tough, really. I think that this Team Deliver roster, this D3 roster, continue to be a part of the conversation at all times. Can you close that gap? Elites are a really good time to really get that practice in and try and figure that out. So there may be the teams of interest to me. I think the one name that kind of surprised me being here is Invidian. That guy's been around for forever. Don't get me wrong, good players. They're 4 solid players. I don't know too much about his teammates, but I've you know, floating the names around there through the season. But just the fact that Invidian's been here for literally forever and is still qualifying for elites is that was an eyebrow raiser. I
mean, I like that we also see I love the team name Luti's Lions coming on in as well with Coach Luti as well. I really like this, right? I mean, Luti's been around the space forever, right? And kind of in what we were talking about with Afflicted on Cabal on the North American side, I think is even more so here, where maybe this could be a sort of that idea of, hey, if Luti can kind of also continuously, you know, establish yourself as a coach, that is now starting to become, I think, a little bit more of a reality for some of these challengers teams where, hey, you now might obviously have some stock as a coach. Then maybe one of these big orgs can pick you on up and say, hey, you really know what you're doing. You know how to create a system. Let's give you the players that you need in order to be a top-notch team.
Yeah, like Luti's been around forever, whether it be a player, content creator, coach, manager. Guy does a bit of everything. He'd be the janitor for the Ravens at some point, I'm sure. But this is also the fact that it's a mixed nations roster, right? Like this is Yafti and Faisal coming over from Saudi, I believe, at least at the Middle Eastern region, and then Bibi Connor and Disarray, who have, you know, been elite players probably in and off since Cold War. So I mean, it'd be definitely one to keep an eye on. That being said, if I'm completely honest with you, I just don't. I'd love it to happen, but I don't see anyone getting close to the top 2 here. I just don't.
No, it's gonna be tough, I think, to go ahead and see. But very excited, like you said. I think, you know, we have a lot of the top teams that we've expected coming out of EMEA, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a more interesting conversation when we talk about the groups. Now, obviously, like we said before, these groups are based on the seeding format that we've kind of seen before. So we kind of mentioned it's basically a top 2 and everybody trying to catch up. Those 2 teams will be split, which does mean Group A and Group B on the EMEA side, I guess, does look a little bit different. But let's talk about at least Group A here, my friend, because I think, obviously, Clutch Rain, they've looked fantastic all day long. But to me, it's less about the top end and more about the bottom end, because I feel like if you're not Clutch Rain, all of a sudden, for the rest of these teams, it looks a little bit more competitive.
It does. It does. There should be interesting matchups at the very least. I think that you are going to get a lot of these teams understanding that, yes, you're probably expecting Clutch Rain to walk this Group 5-0, but for everybody else, it could go down to tiebreakers. It could be very much so a bit of a Russian roulette there. I think for me, the way the process qualified leaves me very dubious. Well, that's all we'll say about that. But the fact that you had to... don't worry about it. Go have a look. Nothing happened. Don't worry about it. But process, sorry, fellas. I do not have much stock in you after the way you managed to qualify, and as such, I'm not expecting you to get through these groups. I think for Night Vibes as well, I just look at that top four. I think that they're the ones I think are more consistent. For Night Vibes, Gentle looks like a real shooter, to be honest. But otherwise, I think that the other three still have a bit of learning to do. Again, this is the perfect place to do that. The elites certainly are the best time to play against the best teams and really start to grow as players. So I need to see a bit more out of them before I get some faith. Yeah,
I think I'm right there with you. It's similar to what we talked about on the NA side. If we're talking about the two teams to not make it out of the group, I think it's a little bit easier to talk about it here on the EMEA side. And I'm right there with you. There's a lot of stuff going on with the process. Whether it was legit or not, I don't care. The fact of the matter is that they barely get here by the skin of their teeth. Night Vibes, same thing. It feels like if Gentle's hot, this team looks crazy. If Gentle's getting shut down, they're going to be struggling in some of these matchups. It's a lot higher caliber of players, especially when we kind of talk about having to play through these groups. So that's at least Group A, but let's talk about Group B, my friend, where we can see obviously this P7 team of Denza, Harry, Mythics, and FDOT kind of probably expected to run through this. But I guess my question that I'll kind of pose this one here, do you think that Rock actually becomes maybe a little bit of the thorn in the side for P7 here? Because I really like this Rock Esports team, but it feels like maybe you can make this a little bit more competitive than necessarily what we think with Group A.
I like the question, actually. I'm just going to go very quickly check who it was that they beat in Cup 2. So it was Clutch Rain that they beat in Winners Finals. They beat P7 in the upper bracket 3-1. They beat him in Winners Finals. So Grand Finals beating Clutch Rain out 4-3. So yeah, they certainly could. They have the potential. They have the capability to do that. I like the questioning. Obviously, the better you perform in the groups, the better the seed is for the playoff bracket. If you were to come out of Group B first, you would play fourth qualifier from Group A and so on and so forth. Yeah. So it's certainly worth fighting for. There's a lot of money on the line for the elites. I think it's like $54,000 per bracket or something. So yeah, plenty of money, and every step deeper is a good thing. So yeah, they could do. Rock certainly have that capability. It's just they lack consistency. So while I can see Rock beating P7, I could also see them stumbling and having like a banana peel moment against the D3 or a hybrid nation. So that's my only question mark with that team.
Yeah, and I guess when we're kind of looking at this, maybe we need to give the pit some edit functionality here, because I don't think they're supposed to be called Optic Academy anymore as of a little bit ago. But if we're talking about two teams who are not making it out of Group B, obviously those two at the top, they feel very good. I know we kind of have some question marks around some of these other squads. I mean, when we're kind of looking at it, I don't know. I really can't. I can't personally pick a very solid, teams that maybe might not make it out. So are we just kind of chalking this up as like, hey, for the other four squads, it's going to really be about how consistent can you be throughout these next couple of weeks?
I think for Optic Academy, or not Optic Academy, or whatever. Academy. Yeah, whatever the hell they call themselves. Yeah, exactly. NOA. I put them in the struggle bus. I think this is going to be a tough one. But for above that, I don't know. The fact that I should be saying that Nvidia and team are going to get bounced out of this as well, because the squads above them are good teams. Again, D3 consistently here, always part of conversation. This Hybrid Nations team, I'm hearing great things and seeing great things every time I get to watch Chunk play. Yeah. Whaler's coming back. Obviously, he's got so much prowess, but there's something screaming to me that the Nvidia and Co can pull off an upset or two and just manage to scrape by. So maybe an interesting fourth spot fight going on in this one.
But it wouldn't be another Challengers weekend somehow if we didn't also talk about some drama that went on, because that's kind of what just happens every weekend, it feels like, in Challengers at this point. But there's one key sentiment as we get ready to talk about some of this drama that we kind of were noticing on both social media and also the COD competitive subreddit. Not that I think that this needs to be the pulse of competitive Call of Duty, but I think it is something to talk about, where there were multiple threads about how everyone was so invested into Challengers this weekend. Just even look at this, this Sunday of Challengers was better than anything the CDL have done in a long time, with 157 upvotes. That's crazy. crazy. As you kind of scroll down through, Stallions v Stallions drama is peaking. 171 upvotes. Anyone else getting less and less excited for CDL matches due to challengers? Like, there's just so many of these moments, right, that has people excited for challengers, and that's a sentiment that we have been wanting for a long time.
It is. And what we're going to try and do here is put the positive spin on it and look at it from the viewpoint of this is testament to everything that Bush, Stallions, Huntsman, etc., all these people, watch parties, personalities in the space are doing to focus on challengers, which has been the ugly, ignored, neglected stepbrother for many a years. And right now we said at the start of the year, it feels like it's suddenly going on a bit of a resurgence. It feels like it's growing a bit.
Sure.
I don't think we could have ever predicted that it would have ended up getting anywhere near this. But I think alongside the fact that you get, like, Bush, I was watching their matches. They've got the watch party going. They've got thousands of people in chat. They've got catchphrases already for stuff where, it's like amazing. And then you've got, the Stallions drama, the Stallions teams playing each other, and we'll touch on all of that.
Yeah.
But the big thing was this felt like old school Call of Duty. That, I think, is why it resonates so much with the players and the fans.
I'm right there with you, dude. I feel like that's just really what it is that this feels like the Call of Duty community that you and I literally grew up in. It made us want to have careers in this space, was just everybody being locked in, right? I know you have a much bigger sports background than I do. Like, I grew up, like, esports was the sports I cared about, right? And it's just like, it just having that sense of community kind of like really just feels like for the first time in a while in COD, like we have that. And there's a lot of drama that went on that kind of also helped it make it feel like that, because man, do we love some of this. First off, we got to kick off. We don't got to dive super into some of this, but we have some drama with Legend, obviously in the Stallions roster, where it has, and I want to be very clear here. I'm not blaming Legend at all, right? Obviously, I think there's a mental health component to this. Wants to go back to France. Cool. They're trying to make an emergency sub, and apparently this is a 3-day endeavor to figure that out, of whether they can make a sub or not. And then it comes down to the final moments, like, hey, Legend is going to be back in the country. We'll be able to compete against this underneath the Stallions banner. Great, because that brings us all the way down to our sort of other drama. We get this absolute cinema, Stallions Black, the second roster. I don't know if we can call it that anymore. Now going against Stallions Red in the bracket in order to qualify for the Elite. They beat them. Symbols has some choice words for Colt Havoc in the post game, but they were teed. Dude, that was hype. You cannot blame it. That was hype.
Look, if Zoomer and the crew aren't already making themselves basically the same graphics and branding that they already have, but in black, then they're missing a trick here, because now this is the lead team, quite frankly. Not only do you manage to qualify ahead of your sister team, but then you beat them to get there. And, there's plenty of drama just inside the damn series. It was all over the place. Went to a game 5, round 10, I think it was, in the end. Yeah. So, incredibly close matchup. And this is also skipping over the fact that Ryan, one of the Stallions Black players, watched a YouTube video just before the Elites to optimize his PC and fried that motherfucker. This CPU was toast, and he had 20 minutes to figure out how to play. Otherwise, his team would have been out of here. So this day could have gone anywhere. We could easily have been sat here saying, Ryan, brother, you just cost your team a chance at getting to the Elite. Instead, they somehow make it through. So to stay composed and locked in through all of that, I mean, if that's not summing up how the day went, then I don't really know how you do it.
I like the top comment on this. By the way, this has 240 upvotes on it, and they say Zuma's nose may implode with anger. And also, I'm gonna agree, as somebody who works in software, with this person, where they say you have to completely screw up and take off the guardrails and push the CPU to fry it. Yeah. Ryan apparently was following a YouTube video in order to do this, so maybe block YouTube on match days, Ryan.
I've got to assume he didn't even follow the video correctly, because there's no way that content is staying up on YouTube, right? Like, you'd have gone in, comments would have been like, this is just blowing my PC up. Like, what the? Unless he's watching like something that was made with and it's got 5 views on it. I don't know how he's achieved it. I'll be straight.
Oh god, it's probably like a 13-year-old who's trying to like make a video for his friends on how to optimize their, like, as a prank. Like, I'm gonna fry their PCs. Oh, but hey, Ryan, please don't do that again. You got some important matches coming up. Maybe have a professional do it. I know there are a lot of people in the space. Yeah, just hit up one of those
professionals.
Yeah, but that's besides the point. Anyway, we also have, of course, we have Next Threat Black taking on Next Threat, as well. That's kind of another one now. Obviously, Next Threat Black, they're seen as sort of quote unquote the better roster. But anytime we have two teams from the same org having to battle each other in order to make it to qualify on, it's just good fun. Obviously, Mr. Doug Censor Martin himself had some things to say, even going off on Ben J for some reason. You can see there with some choice maybe hand gestures towards Ben J. Came out later, said, hey, it was heat of the moment. People were flaming him for losing his ex-girlfriend, a smoke show weather lady. I don't know why the Doug Censor Martin show came out last night with this happening, but oh my God, it was just cinema. Like, so many of these clips, dude, were just like pure Call of Duty to me.
Yeah, everyone gives Censor so much shit, but like he's a great dude at heart, man. He's heart of gold. Weather girl aside and all that stuff, it is, whenever he plays, he's under so much scrutiny, so much pressure. And to be fair to him, their first game of the day was this Next Threat Black against Next Threat. Now, Next Threat Black is a disgusting roster. Diamond Con, Standy, Exceed, and Johnny, I think. So like that is a terrifying roster capable of winning the Elite. And Doug went nuclear map 1 to get his team the victory. So he was putting on, he was doing his best. Unfortunately, Doug, when they eventually end up losing, I think they lose in the end to Cabal. And that is the that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Sometimes you get to that final hurdle twice, you fall just short. You're getting all this slack. You're a bit irritated. You let things loose. But he did pull out the ghost ring as well to show everybody, remind everybody, this boy's a previous world champion.
Yeah, he's there for a reason. And lastly, I think the sort of nail in the coffin on what made this weekend just so enjoyable. We love our storylines, and obviously the Telluride Bush was sort of a fan favorite coming into the Elite. They have to qualify through the losers bracket. Now, granted, it was 3-0 after 3-0 in order to be able to get there, whatever. Yeah. But I think the fact of the matter is like you mentioned, it's just seeing that and that going into this is that like, hey, the storylines that we thought were going to be happening are absolutely thrown out the window. You seeing a top caliber team like that still have to fight their way through the losers bracket in order to qualify. Still kind of goes to show that like, hey, as we kind of look towards even Elite 2 in the next couple weeks here, in the next month or so, it's still going to have to be in the back of your brain when we get ready to go through those qualifiers all over again.
Yeah, what worries me a lot for Bush at the minute is they seem to be on for a week, off for a week. That seems to be how they perform. So let's say you've just had your off week. First week of Elite, you go in, on week. Second week, off week. Third week, on week. It's kind of like I don't know if you can rely on that kind of like flip-flap all over the damn place kind of performances in an Elite, because there's so many good teams. Like, you could easily go into week 2 and you need a good week to qualify because of the way the draw can sometimes work, and you end up getting kind of bounced out of there, and you could fail to make playoffs, which would be a real misstep, a real blunder by this Bush roster. And Jersey Jerry and the crew, I mean, you see them there. They've already said, look, if we're not at least contending for these cups, for these Elites, we're making changes. So all those players are going to be aware of the pressures that they're under. So they got to fix up this slip moment that they continue to have every now and again.
So where obviously the qualifiers this past weekend gave us tons to talk about, tons of fantastic COD to watch. It is only the beginning. Elite 1 starts this week on Wednesday. Kicking it off with EMEA, and then will remind me what time EMEA is because I only care about NA.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Hey, guess what? The best way to make sure you know is follow COD Esports on Twitter at COD_esports. And also make sure that you are following the Challengers YouTube channel as well, because I believe that is where all matches will be streamed and casted by some fantastic people in the community. It's always a really fun time. So Call of Duty Challengers is back. It's officially getting ready to get started with Elite 1. You are not going to want to miss it. But as for that, hey, guess what? That has been this week in Challengers.